Okay. Okay, hello and welcome to our weekly Wednesday night live stream. I am your host, Dana Morningstar, and this is a live stream that we do pretty much every Wednesday night at about 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it normally runs for about 3 hours. So this week, and then probably the next at least one more week, I'm going to be broadcasting. I'm dog sitting for a friend of mine. So I'm going to be broadcasting from their living room couch. So we'll see how that goes. So welcome everybody. Dora is here. Margarita, Xiao Yu, James, Nikki, Kamami, Monica, Kuntane. Hello, hello. Oh, before I forget, book club is tomorrow night at 6:30. Yes, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The book that we're going to be discussing is called Whole Again by Jackson Mackenzie. So I hope you guys can join us for that. And yeah, James says, yeah, it sounds like the book club's going to be interesting. Dana is live from a random couch. That's right. I am live from a random couch with a random dog. With a random dog. Yes. She is such a sweetheart. Hi, you gonna say hi to the people? No? I'm just gonna sit there. So let's see. How is everybody doing? How was your week? How are things? What's going on? Rob, hello. Rob, I got your package in the mail the other day. So I haven't had a chance to listen to the music that you put on the thumb drive, but I will do that probably here this in the next few days. And then as far as doing like a like a meetup or something goes, I'll have to see. I think I'm not too far from Port Huron, but I'm gonna have to check. So we'll see. We'll see. Gareth says your surroundings look different. Yes, I am dog sitting for some friends of mine, so I am at their house on their couch. Quentin says, hi, I was just wondering, can a heterosexual female be manipulated by, I'm not sure what you mean, be manipulated into a homosexual one? She thinks she's still straight, but still traumatized by her narcissist. So I guess who is manipulating who? Are you thinking that she was straight, but then she's being manipulated by a homosexual female into a homosexual relationship? Well, I'll just answer the question and then I guess how I am interpreting it, and then you just chime in and let me know if I'm off track. Anybody can be manipulated by anybody, and it is very common for a person after they have been through any type of abusive or exploitative, same thing really, relationship, to kind of really look for a soft place to land. And for, I think more so for women, a lot of women, if they've been hurt really bad by a man, or if they've been hurt by multiple men, it can be common for them to fear men and to try to kind of take safety in women. Some women just surround themselves with female friends, but some women get the idea that men are dangerous to date. And so they try to convince themselves that women would be safer to date. And of course, that's not the case, because problematic behavior, it's behavior, it's not a gender. So yeah, there can be a lot of confusion involved during that whole healing process. And I am still getting over my cold, so you guys are gonna have to kind of bear with me here tonight. Okay, let me scroll up here. Xiao Yu says, can you pretend to like a narcissist and lure them by giving them fake supply until you get out? For how long can you keep it up? Well, and then she says, gray rocking is dangerous for me to use for a long time. I think you kind of just need to do whatever you need to do in order to distance yourself from that person. Some people, what you're talking about doing, kind of acting the part of that you're, that everything is fine, and that, you know, you're just kind of acting the part of their supply. A woman years ago had coined the term, basically it was like, she called it dumb like a fox, which is a play on the term you're smart like a fox. So basically you're playing dumb, that you don't know what's going on, that you're that everything is fine, but you're acting like you're thinking like a fox, like you're being smart and kind of playing the game with that. So it's really, I mean, it's whatever you feel that you need to do in order to get out as safely as possible. Some people need to do that, and sometimes that is the best strategy to use. You can still use kind of the gray rock approach as far as just being non-reactive and just making a conscious intention to really not be reactive when they start pushing buttons, and to not get baited into any fights. Just realize, I just need to detach from this completely and smile and nod and just plan my escape. Yep, that's true. Rob says, yeah, that dumb like a fox helps the safe escape when you don't have the resources to land properly. That's a great way of saying that. Yeah. Yeah, and Xiao Yu says, I had a friend who can't use her boundaries without being physically abused. Yes, and this is one of the reasons I think it's so much of everything that we talk about here. It's always, everybody needs to always take into consideration their own dynamic, and keeping your safety and sanity a top priority. So for a lot of people, if you are in a relationship or some sort of dynamic with an abusive person, the kind of common knowledge or common approach to conflict resolution, like, okay, you've got to be assertive and set boundaries and do these things, and all of that does not work. It does not work with people that have that narcissistic kind of domination driven type personality, because it's a continual power struggle, and these things escalate quickly, and it can kill somebody. It can put them in serious danger, especially if they've already been intimidating and or physically abusive. So at that point, that is not the time to really try to set boundaries. The only safe boundary at that point is a physical one, meaning to get distance from that person, because they're not going to respect your boundaries. Their worldview and their sense of entitlement and their need to control others is at a dangerous level, and it's just not workable. Let's see here. Vaughn asks, can a narcissist make someone commit suicide? They can definitely drive a person to that point. So there's a lot of, especially when a person's not aware of what's going on and they're internalizing it and they're thinking that it's them. And there's that, they're being blamed, the other person's being blamed for everything. It's also not uncommon for the psychological abuse to involve things like saying, literally for them telling a person, you should kill yourself. You know, everything you do is wrong. Nobody will love you like I do. You're so messed up. Just that barrage of verbal abuse can for sure push a person to it. I've heard of a handful of people over the years that have committed suicide, and I have no doubt that it's from the relationship was just so incredibly abusive, emotionally and psychologically, that they just got to the point where they, you know, they thought it was all them and that there was no way out. Wow. Sunny Day says, I know a narcissist that convinced his last 3 girlfriends to commit suicide. Mm. Sarah's talking about her mom struggles with codependency and had no idea of what a boundary was. Yeah, you know, this stuff's not taught. And I wouldn't say that this is common knowledge by any stretch, you know? And for a lot of people, you know, everybody has boundary standards and deal breakers, but they just tend to not think of them in those kinds of terms. So for example, a lot of people, their boundary, or I should say maybe their deal breaker might be if they ever find out that they're getting cheated on, or if they ever get hit. Like those are their 2 main ones, you know. But unfortunately, there's a lot of other stuff that really should fall within deal breakers, not just those 2. And boundaries, a lot of people too have the idea of, oh, if we're married or if we're in a relationship, then we shouldn't have boundaries. That there's this complete enmeshment of my life is your life and your life is my life. And, you know, there's just this level of over involvement going on there. And of course, I mean, that's not healthy, but it can be really dangerous if there's an abusive person in the mix. Let's see. Elizabeth asks, I'm in the recovery process of codependency. Can I have a healthy relationship with an unaware codependent person? I'm going to say by and large, no, because it requires 2 healthy people to have a healthy relationship. And here's kind of the thing with codependency is, sorry if this my laptop's rocking back and forth here, is people with codependency they're comfortable with that imbalance where they're overgiving. And this was one of the lessons that it was so sad when I realized this about myself, that I was the most comfortable in those dynamics. And not only that, so not only was I seeking them out, but I was subconsciously creating them. So, which over time is going to breed resentment, it's going to breed anger, it's just not going to be balanced. So if if they're maybe unaware of kind of some imbalance within themselves, it's really important that they're able, that at a minimum, that you're able to talk to them about that. And that's kind of the foundational pieces are in place as far as, having that open, honest, sincere, and solutions-oriented communication, that they're the ability to be assertive, their ability to kind of handle and address conflict and confrontation. That's probably the biggest one for a lot of people that struggle with codependency, is they're not comfortable with that. And so then they avoid it, thinking, I don't want to rock the boat because I don't want this other person to leave. But that ends up slowly poisoning the relationship, because then major issues aren't brought up. And then I think for a person that's at a more balanced place, you can start sensing when the other person's not bringing things up. And then that begins to feel emotionally unsafe, because it is. Because you don't know what's really going on with that other person, because they're not bringing their authentic self into the relationship. They're bringing that like protective self in, that wounded child in. And it's impossible to have a healthy relationship with somebody's protective self. So if they're interested in personal growth, then there's, I think, potential there. Sometimes I think sharing videos about this topic and letting them know this is, I really want to be able to have a relationship where we're able to effectively address confrontation, and we're able to negotiate, we're able to communicate effectively, and just kind of being able to hold space for each other and create that kind of protected space where you can bring up things and that they're going to handle it appropriately. Like, they're not going to default into being passive and people pleasing, and they're not going to default into becoming aggressive or passive aggressive. That they'll be able to be assertive as well. So I guess what I'm saying, in short, at a minimum, I would say it's a requirement for the other person to have an interest in personal growth. Yeah, because the over giving part of codependency, when you have two people that are struggling with that, here's the challenge with that is, if you've got two people that are both really comfortable with being overgivers, then it can make both people feel kind of anxious, because it's sort of like, okay, well, this is my role in the relationship, is I'm used to overgiving, I'm used to people needing me, these kinds of things. And if the other person feels the same way, then you might find yourself in this weird kind of power struggle where you're trying to overgive to each other in order to ensure that the other person's not going to leave. And again, a lot of this stuff is just subconscious, but it's a game changer when we start making the subconscious conscious, and we start saying, oh my gosh, yeah, actually that's why I was doing that, or what have you. Let's see here. Let me scroll up. Sunny Day says, I want to be able to resolve issues in a healthy manner. I've never had that. Yeah, it's only been, I would say recently in my life that I've been able to cultivate that. And that was such a like sad realization of, oh my gosh, not only had I been attracted to a lot of the wrong people for a lot of the wrong reasons for pretty much all of my life, but that even relationships that had the potential of being healthy, I needed them to be imbalanced in order for me to feel safe. And that was, tears were shed over that moment. It's just it's pulling a string on the sweater when you start realizing how deep this stuff goes, and yeah, all of that. But really, I think it takes finding another person or people that are interested in personal growth and being able to talk about this, talking about uh, confrontation and conflict and um, realizing, okay, it's okay. Like, it's totally okay. If you get angry or frustrated or upset with me, that's completely okay. But at the same time, I do expect to be approached in a way that's still appropriate, like, respectful and, um, just, like you would approach somebody at work or, just with that level of regard. Like, I don't, if somebody starts yelling at me, cussing at me, raising their voice, becoming intimidating, I'm not okay with that. So, and it's amazing how many other people out there like communicate healthy, that they're fine. They're totally like, oh yeah, of course I would do that. Of course I'm not going to yell at you or, you know, punch a wall or call names or give silent treatment. Like, of course we can talk about these things. So, I mean, who knew? Ah, let's see. Wonder Woman says, I freeze when I have to handle responsibilities like legal issues and job searching and applying for healthcare. Is that a response because of the narcissistic abuse? And how can I move past the freezing? Well, that's a great question. It may or may not be due to narcissistic abuse. At a minimum, any one of those things, any one of those three things can be stressful for anybody. And um, when a lot of us find ourselves in stressful situations, we tend to freeze in a wide variety of ways. Freeze or flight. We flight by staying busy doing other things or losing ourselves in some sort of other task or um, procrastinating is a big one. um, Sleeping, these kinds of things. So what can help with that is to chunk it down. And I need to take my own advice on this because I struggle with this as well. It helps to set a timer for 15 minutes and to pick one task. So let's say legal issues, to pick whatever legal issue it might be. Um, I don't know. Let's say you're going through a bankruptcy and you need to get all of your paperwork together and there's 10 different things that you need to do. Picking one thing on the list, set your timer for 15 minutes and then just hammer it hard in that focused area for a short amount of time. Just getting out of that overwhelm and developing that momentum, it's amazing how much that helps. And that momentum, it's once that you realize, okay, this is actually manageable, uh, it's easier to kind of maintain that momentum. And so you can start setting the timer. You can set the timer thing multiple times a day with taking breaks in between, or you can switch between various tasks, however you want to do it. But that's one thing that really works the best for me, is just setting a timer and making it kind of like a game. Like, how much can you get done in 15 minutes? This also works well if a person's struggling with maybe depression or overwhelm and your house is a mess and you just don't even know where to begin. Setting a timer, picking one room, let's say the kitchen, and then just, you know, hitting it hard, doing dishes, cleaning off the countertop, whatever. It really is amazing what we can get done in 15 minutes. Let's see. Kuntane says, I have been afraid to go to court as I feel he is going to be exposed, which will make him want to get me back. I had a stalker on Saturday night and it freaked me out and I'm feeling paranoid. Well, I can understand why you would feel paranoid. You know, those are both two very scary situations. And I think that's a pretty normal response to two very real, very scary situations. So I guess at this point, it would be kind of trying to figure out, okay, then what can you do to bring some peace back in your life? And I would plan on with court, yeah, he probably is going to want revenge. So I'd plan for that. So how can you make sure that you stay as safe as possible after you testify or do whatever it is that you're going to do? You could possibly see about, I would try talking to the attorney and letting them know your fears and seeing if there's any way that they can make that safe for you. If there's anything kind of self-protection wise you can have at your house. You know, as far as the stalker, you know, same kind of thing. I'd keep a paper trail if you know who this person is. I would let other people know. But yeah, that's legitimately scary stuff. Oh, that's a great question. Shall you asks, do you know what books to look out for? Books that may be bad for your narcissistic recovery process. Hmm. Wow, this cup is really heavy. Let me think about that. Books that would be bad. I almost think that any book on this topic has the potential to be damaging to a person because it really depends on their level of kind of understanding and healing at when they go to read it. That's one of the reasons I started the book club, which is tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Last Thursday of every month, we do this book club where we read one book related to this topic and then we discuss it. And one of the things that I find so valuable with that is each person has different takeaways and then different concerns from the book that we're reading. So it's every single book. I'm continually amazed at the concerns that other people have that I did not even pick up on. And the books, you know, I've written 3 books myself, and I have people that I refer to as test readers. So they read the books, kind of, I guess you could almost say like sensitivity readers. They read the books, they give their feedback as far as this is a concern, this might need to be worded a little bit differently, what have you. And it's amazing because I've lived it. I talk about this, I teach this, I run a huge support group on this. And sometimes it's just a matter of perception. So it's, you know, when I put out a book, it's really helpful for me to get the feedback of other people that have also lived this, just to make sure that my message is landing the way that I want it to. So I guess, you know, any book can has the potential to derail somebody based on how they're perceiving it. I'm trying to think of some of the common ones. I've heard a lot of people really take issue with the book You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And I can see why they would feel that way, especially if they're fresh out, because it talks a lot about kind of like forgiveness and um, certain things that can be really hurtful for a person. Um, let's see, what other book? I think any book on repairing relationships has the potential to go south, because those books tend to not be, they don't necessarily couch their advice within the context of, if there's abuse involved, it's just time to go. Like, this isn't workable. Jack asks Dana, he says, is your back okay? You're not standing tonight. No, I'm actually at a friend's house tonight. I'm dog sitting for the next few weeks for them. I hope my back will be okay. I'm more concerned about my back being okay with me sitting for a couple hours, because that's when I tend to have issues. I do much better when I'm standing. So we shall see. And Jack also mentioned, I hope Dana will consider using a text service like what Angie and Lisa are using. I need to look at it again. I don't have a smartphone, but I have a texting app. Yes, I do need to do that. Yes. Right now, project number one is to get my website rebuilt, because it crashed big time and it's just profoundly broken. I don't even know what the issue is. I've had one of my admins who's like a tech support guy, he's been working on it. So hopefully we're gonna have something new here by the first week of July. Yeah, Wonder Woman says, yeah, Dana, it's so true. The relationship fixing books are aggravating with the narcissist, when they tell you to make I statements and talk about your feelings, but the narcissist does not want to hear about you. Yeah, or they make it seem like abuse of any kind is a couple's issue, and that you can somehow twist yourself into enough of a pretzel. Like, you could be, if you were only more understanding, more compassionate, more validating, more this, more that, that you could have stopped it, or that you could, and that's that's such damaging advice, and it is so not true. Let's see. Bogard said, let's see the doggy. Pico. She is sound asleep. Let's see. Maybe she'll come up later. I'll try to get her on camera before the end of the live stream. She's crashed. Huh? She's so cute. You're so cute. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Huh? Let's see. Let me scroll up here. Yes, that's a really great point. Bren had mentioned too. Yeah, and some religions have this idea too, trying to claim that babies chose their abusive parents. Yeah, there's certain ideologies, that law of attraction kind of stuff, or yeah, certain religions where, oh, you attracted this, you somehow caused this, you chose this. Like, that to me is just, it's so just profoundly painful, that it just enrages me. It's victim blaming at its worst. Okay, let me scroll up here. Oh, Xiao Yu says, yeah, there was a book that talks about how narcissists are really not aware of what they're doing to you and tries to make you pity them. I can't really remember the title. Yeah, there's quite a few of those out there as well. And yeah, that kind of stuff, irritates me too. Like, it doesn't matter if they do or don't know what they're doing. It's more, I really feel like the focus needs to be on us and what's acceptable in our lives, and it's completely okay to have a zero tolerance for mistreatment like that. you know? It's because the danger of that, and sometimes I don't think that that's the author's intention, uh, but the danger is, the whole kind of premise of like, oh, well, hurt people, and they did the best they could, and they just don't know, and blah, 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 and they had a bad childhood. That can be so damaging to people trying to get out of an abusive relationship, because then they default into pity and, um, you know, uh, guilt, basically, and then they end up staying. So my realm says, hey, Dana, I've been following you and Angie for a while. Well, very cool. Welcome to our Wednesday live stream, or my Wednesday live stream. Julie says, I had a breakthrough in therapy yesterday. I was a textbook codependent. Yesterday, I learned I don't have to take responsibility for another person's emotions. Well, good for you. Yeah, that's huge, you know? And that's not the same thing, because I think a lot of people get this confused too, as taking another person's feelings into consideration, So like we can still set boundaries in a tactful way. I think that's always appropriate, but realizing that, um, another person, we don't have control over how they respond to us setting boundaries. All we have control over is doing it in a tactful kind of, reasonable adult way. And then we have to just kind of let that go. And we can't sit there and make the other person, feel okay about it, or if they feel hurt, if they feel abandoned, if they feel all of these things, we don't need to own that and work overtime to try to make them okay with things. Um, yeah, that's what I was getting at, Gigi. Gigi was saying, my estranged spouse often says, I am not responsible for your feelings, when I voice my concern with his treatment of me and set a boundary. Yep. And that's how that concept can be, another way that concept can be twisted, is a lot of really hurtful. This is why I was trying to kind of hone in on the tact part of it there, because a lot of abusive people will focus more on, oh, I'm just being, brutally honest, and I'm just being honest, and if you can't handle it, then that's your fault, not mine, kind of a thing. But appropriate communication involves tact, and um, so we can still set up, we really ideally need to be setting boundaries and having communication that involves tact. But for people like that are all about control and entitlement, they don't care and they don't see it. They will expect it from you, but they won't feel that they need to give, to reciprocate in any way, shape, or form. They just don't get it. Yep, and that's another great point. And Gigi says, yeah, or uses concepts in addict 12-step groups to further his abuse and skirt responsibility and accountability. Yeah, well, I think my response to that would be, 12-step groups are all about accountability, making a list of um, kind of, things that we've done wrong and owning up to that and admitting our shortcomings, and you really got to own your behavior. But yeah, it's very common, especially for a person who I think is first getting into 12-step programs. It takes them a while, if they ever even get there, to fully embrace, to be accountable for their behavior. It's very common, especially for addicts of any kind, to blame others and blame situations. And oh, it was the cops had a quota, they pulled me over, I don't have a problem drinking. Oh, it was you know, my wife just nags all the time and that's why I was doing drugs, or, oh, it was because, you know, this is my bad childhood, or I had a bad day, or, um, you know, kind of, it's a disease. I have no control over it. You know, these kinds of things. And so it takes a person, I think in general, a little while, if they're sincere about actually working the program, to get to the place where they see that, okay, whatever we're choosing in our life, even though it's compulsive behavior that feels like we're not in control of it, we still have to own that. And we still have to be the ones to heal that. And I agree too. Gareth says, I have a problem with 12-step groups because to say one is powerless is not helpful. Yeah, I agree. That's um yeah, there's a lot, you know, there's a lot of things that 12-step groups I think do right. And I love the fact, um right, just there's so many things about them that I think they do right. I love the fact that they're free. I love the fact that they're worldwide and that it's, you can go online, you can find a meeting pretty much anywhere, and it's at least something. Because I'm a big fan that recovery from anything um, should be free. It needs to be an easily available resource for people. That's my opinion, because you know, like it just makes the world a better place. Like I just it just needs to be free. So I love the fact that that's a big part of their core mission. I love the fact that they have a big book that they work out of, and that they have it down to where it's people, um, you know, that they have sponsors and that people can share different things, and they have different topics that they cover, and that it's kind of like this self-governing type thing. I just think all of that is so spot on and so wonderful. But yeah, there's a few issues I have too with the whole, you know, admitting that we're powerless. But generally, it's more so admitting that you're powerless over the addiction. At least that's how I I think that's the intention there. Of, you know what, I've been trying to control the alcohol or the drugs or the sex or whatever, and I can't. And I'm gonna quit trying to think that I can control it, and I'm actually going to admit that I need help, and that I can't control it. Like this is at this point in my life, it's unmanageable. But I agree, the wording could be a little bit more, yeah, a little different and a little bit more empowered. That's would be my wish as well. Um, I'm also not a fan of the pressure to find a higher power. I think that can be really damaging for a lot of people who are atheist or who have gone through spiritual abuse, and you know, they just, it's just not for them. There's other groups out there that, what is the, Rational Recovery is another group, and I don't know if they're free or not, but they have a website, and they have their own approach to sobriety from different addictions and everything, but it's without the religion part of it. Okay, let me let me scroll up. Huh? No, I haven't. I've never even heard of that. That last Miranda was saying, have you read The 12 Steps by Russell Brand? And if so, what did you think? Uh no, I'm going to have to though. He's a riot. That's going to be on my reading list. Let's see here. Let's see, people are talking about, okay. The chat kind of, I'm going to address it because I think this is a question that comes up often, but it kind of spiraled a little bit here in the chat. Zachary had said, I wonder why there are more narcissistic men than women. And then Jack had said, well, why do you think that? I don't think that there are any more male narcissists than female narcissists. Maybe men are more overt, but maybe women are more covert. And then people were talking about the different female narcissists in their life. And Zachary was saying that he was just kind of citing research. I think a lot of, the research does show that it's closer to, I want to say like an 80-20 split, or maybe even 70-30 with men being primary. I think the kind of data pool, the sampling size and sampling population is potentially skewed, because this is just my thoughts on it. Narcissists don't come to therapy generally. And if they do, they're either court appointed or they're dragged in there. And my guess is that probably women are more inclined to drag their male partners into therapy than vice versa. So I think that might be part of it. They also might be getting some of the data from prison. I know that's where a lot of the samples came for, like antisocial personality disorder. And then also I think there's just kind of a bias with the way that we perceive various behaviors. If you had a man and woman both do the same thing, it's women tend to be given more of a free pass for a lot of things. Like if a woman, let's say, well, I guess it depends. If a woman hits a man out in public, a lot of society is inclined to think, oh, well, what did he do to deserve that? Right. But if a guy hits a woman out in society, people, are outraged and, oh my gosh, he's abusive. And it's the same thing even with, I think, female, mothers. So if a mother's, really being kind of critical and controlling with a child, oftentimes that's seen as, oh, she's just overly involved with her child, or, oh, she's maybe even a good parent. Whereas if a father was doing that, it would seem as, oh, he's a jerk, or he's whatever. So I think the way we perceive behaviors based on gender is also a huge factor in that. I think more men, and even the term, narcissist, kind of coming from Greek mythology, he was a man. So I think there's even some of this kind of implied bias present. I think by and large, women tend to get more diagnosed as borderline personality disorder and possibly histrionic, whereas men tend to get more diagnosed as antisocial and narcissistic personality disorder. That's my guess. I don't know. That would make for an interesting thesis, though, for somebody. Let's see. Miss Warren says, I am shocked that you've been standing during the live streams all these years. Yeah, it seems like it would be a lot, but you really get used to a standing desk, and it's amazing. I do so much, my body feels so much better when I'm standing than when I'm sitting, because I can move around. I can squirm. Let's see here. Hmm. Jennifer says, I think part of my problem in healing is that I don't really know how to have discipline. Like in some ways I do to survive and pay my bills, but I'm not thriving because of my lack of discipline. Well, I guess discipline in what ways? In what ways are you lacking discipline? Okay. Oh, was it? That's interesting, Nicole. I haven't looked into it too much. And she's saying the rational recovery was a get rich quick cult-like program that is no longer in practice. AA is not for everyone, but please do your research before starting any type of addiction therapy. I'll have to look into that some more. I did not realize that. And I would agree. Doing your research before starting any type of addiction therapy. And sometimes too, if you do decide 12-step groups are the way that you want to go and you have a bad experience at one meeting, every meeting is a little bit different. And so sometimes the solution is to just go to a handful of different meetings and see, and one of their tenets, which I'm a huge fan of, is hold on to what helps and let the rest go. I think that's just so important in recovery of any kind. So I think one of the benefits of group of any type of group therapy, whether it be online or in person, is it really helps to reduce shame and defensiveness that's present when addiction of any kind tends to be present. And it also helps because it helps you're not alone. Like you realize that you're not alone and other people there have the same struggles, and kind of hearing their own challenges and just realizing, oh, okay, yeah, this is fairly par for the course for people that are struggling with this type of addiction. I think that just knowing that you're not alone in that and getting rid of that isolation and that shame is powerful, powerful stuff. Let's see. Let me scroll up. Okay, Jack is saying that last Miranda had a good question. And okay, I've got two good questions here. Last Miranda says, I still struggle resolving toxic shame. Do you have any advice? I think it depends on where that toxic shame is coming from. Well, I think we're going to talk a little bit more about this in the book club tomorrow, but um, kind of where we picked up these different messages about shame, because shame is that feeling, guilt is the feeling of I did something bad and so therefore I feel bad, versus shame is I am bad and therefore I feel bad. And I don't want anybody to get to know me because I'm so profoundly broken or damaged or unlovable that I'm not worth being loved or getting to know as another human being. So yeah, I think a lot of it starts with kind of identifying like where these came from and pinpointing it. And I also think it can help to see if this stuff kind of, if it came, well, even if it didn't come from childhood, because I was going to say, if it comes from childhood, then we're acting from that wounded child place where we've internalized all of the negative messages that we were given. But even if we were in an abusive relationship as an adult, we were still coming from that wounded child place. If we were absorbing all of that, we turned our power over to this other person and let them define us and let them define our reality. And so it can help to come from like a healthy adult place and realize all of these hateful, hurtful things that this other person said, that was their own wounds. That's their own garbage and unresolved baggage stuff. That's that talking. I don't have to own that. Like this person is damaged in whatever way, shape, or form for whatever reason, and they're putting all of that stuff on me. And I don't need to own that. Like that doesn't mean that I may not be perfect, but there are good things about you, you know? And I think just kind of seeing yourself in a more accurate, empowered way through that lens of the healthy adult self. And then my realm had asked, how do I set limits? And that's a big question. That's just a big question. I think first and foremost, our boundaries are an extension of our standards, and our standards are an extension of our self-esteem. And you could even say our self-esteem is an extension of our self-worth. But we have to kind of know ourselves before any of those other pieces can kind of get into place. So when you're in tune with I think it starts with knowing that being treated with dignity and respect is just a basic human right. It's not something that you need to earn. And so I think starting there and then realizing, okay, knowing yourself, getting in tune enough with your emotions to know when you're being treated, when you're in something that's uncomfortable. For a lot of people, this takes a little bit of practice, quite a bit of practice. It's easier to start with knowing when you're being abused or knowing like extremes. It's easier to start with extremes, knowing when something is outrageous behavior and that you will not tolerate it, or when you're being abused. And then over time, it's kind of tightening that up to realizing, okay, when am I being treated in a way that's not okay with me? And then when am I being treated in a way that's just uncomfortable for me? So for example, being treated in a way that's deal breaker stuff often involves, another person yelling, becoming intimidating, verbally abusive, persistent, controlling, demanding, scary. These kinds of things tend to be some of the first deal breakers that people tune into. They're like, oh, wow, yikes. Yeah, this person, how did I never notice this before? I've been dating online and here's this person who's, sending me nude pictures and they're, just very insistent and persistent and creepy. And maybe that was something that we would gloss over or tolerate before and kind of give them the benefit of the doubt, versus now we're waking up to what it feels like to be treated with disrespect. And we're like, you know what? I'm done with that. Like, I don't suffer any fools. Like, that's not what I'm about. And that's not what I'm looking for. And so we just shut that down. We don't try to make it work. We don't talk to them about it. We don't give them the opportunity to backpedal and claim that they didn't mean it. And that we're just gone. Then the getting in tune with when you're being mistreated, I would say that falls more into like contempt, disdain, and hostility. So when a person is just I'd say like more, that might register more as like minor manipulation, where they just seem disgusted with you, or they're doing things that are very passive aggressive, kind of sabotaging type things, a lot of gaslighting, that kind of stuff falls within that. And then being treated in a way that you're just not comfortable with. So let's say, for example, we'll just use the online dating example again, where somebody messages you that you don't know, and they're doing like, kissy face, and they're calling you pet names, and they're saying things that makes you uncomfortable, realizing, hey, I'm not okay with that. And then maybe you bring it up to them, and maybe you don't. Maybe you're just like, you know what, I'm done. Like, this person's just looking for sex. So next, I don't want to have to correct a person. Like adults know how to interact with each other. Like, anybody that's sincerely looking to be in your life isn't gonna be. They're gonna be trying to make a good impression. They're not gonna be acting like, that they're not going to be acting inappropriate. So, yeah, so kind of knowing when you're being mistreated, or if somebody crossed boundaries, even if they're well-intended, if they say something like, they tell you a joke, that's, I don't know, just kind of tasteless, like it's a racist or sexist or whatever joke. And you're like, I don't really, I don't find that kind of stuff funny. So maybe they didn't mean to offend you, but you're still like, hey, no, like, it just, no. You're just kind of setting boundaries with them. So you got to know when, that your boundaries are crossed before you can actually start setting boundaries. And another great way to tell when a boundary's been crossed is to pay attention to how you feel, because it comes across as uncomfortable, irritated. You might feel angry, frustrated. You find yourself rehashing that conversation. You might find yourself venting to a friend or somebody, a therapist, about this other person, whether it be a coworker, a friend, a significant other, you name it. If you find yourself continually thinking about it and venting to others, that's a sign that there's been a boundary crossed. So that's probably one of the early ways to really tell. Because when we have a harmony in our life, we don't continually rehash situations and feel the need to vent about it to other people. So with that said, so knowing when you're being mistreated, knowing when a boundary's been crossed, then it's about how do you go about actually setting one. And I guess it just kind of depends on the situation and how you go about it, and depends on the person. This takes practice, lots and lots of practice. And every single time it's learning a new skill, just like playing the piano or learning to ride a bike or learning a foreign language, probably a better example. It just takes practice. But once you get it down, you get it down. So there's definitely a level of self-compassion and grace that's needed, because you're not going to do this perfectly. And to realize, yeah, you're gonna hindsight is always 2020. After that situation's over, you're like, man, I'm glad I did this and this, but I really wish I would have said X, Y, and Z. Or I really wish I would have said this like way earlier. So every time you go through this process with somebody, if you can kind of stay compassionate with yourself, you can ride that learning curve a lot easier. But the back part of my book, my latest book, The Narcissist's Playbook, is all about setting boundaries and some of the common areas that tend to be out of alignment for people. So I know I don't know if we're reading that book this year or not. But I think we might be reading it next year for book club. It's coming out in audiobook, hopefully by like the first week of July. So if you're interested in that, that's a book to check out. But it talks all about manipulative behavior, and the last few sections talk about finding that balance again within ourselves, and setting boundaries. And I talk about how it can be dangerous around certain people. So kind of knowing what kind of person you're dealing with, and taking all of that into account, and so on. Let's see. Oh, I agree. Yeah, Nikki was talking about women. She says it's women pedophiles seem to get way less punishment versus men. It's disgusting. Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah, Bren says the BPD, the borderline personality disordered witch, waif, queen kind of stuff is easier to see in women. I don't know how to discern BPD in men. It's challenging, and if I'm honest about it, I'm not sure if I really can discern it that well either in men. Um, there's only been, I can only really think, I'm sure that I've worked with many men that have been diagnosed as BPD as when I was a psychiatric nurse, but there's only one male patient that comes to mind that I like vividly remember having BPD, and it was, um, I mean, like very obvious kind of behavior stuff. He was all over the place emotionally, and was very manipulative, and um, yeah, he was something else. But he was, I would say, he was also kind of extreme BPD. So I mean, again, extremes are always easier to spot than things that are more mild. There's been many female patients that I've had over the years that have had borderline personality disorder that it took me quite a while. Well, really, after kind of reading their chart to see what was going on, but I would not have guessed it for the longest time. So some people manage it better than others, and some people have different symptoms than others. But normally, with borderline personality kind of stuff, it's that pervasive fear of abandonment, and it's that push pull. Oftentimes, it's excessive attention seeking, and either their appearance and or their behavior, generally both. Um, just kind of demanding, often, demanding, entitled. That kind of goes back with the manipulative behavior. Really going from extremes with um, seeing things in a very black and white way, like, oh, I either love you or I hate you, kind of a thing. Yeah. And the whole abandonment thing, it can be real or perceived, which is really wild. So you might even not do, I mean, like you could be, I don't even know, busy, not return their phone call that day, or um, not return it within the time frame that they think you should return it in, and then they freak out and they've created this whole story about how you hate them and you don't want to see them anymore, and they just launch into this fear-based abandonment kind of thinking. But with all of that said, a lot of those behaviors are very, very, very common for a person after abuse. That's what's so challenging, and that's what so many survivors, um, I think, kind of get frustrated with as far as diagnosis, and in mental health professionals too, because there can be a lot of overlap between that complex PTSD and borderline personality disorder. Because when a person's been through an abusive relationship, there is that push pull, there is that constant fear of losing the relationship where you can't assert yourself, you don't know what's going on, this other person's continually playing games, or potentially trying to punish you, or doing silent treatment, and so you just never know where you stand, and so you're chronically anxious. And um, So a lot of it can kind of manifest itself in the same way. Yep. Let's see. Yeah, and Bonnie was saying that narcissists do the black and white thinking a lot as well. And Anna says, yep, and they expect your views to align with theirs. Yeah. Let's see here. And that's a really great point, Jennifer. She says, it's hard for her to know what's worth speaking up on and what isn't. It almost feels like there is a line. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if that struggle ever, I guess it lessens in time the more comfortable we get with asserting ourselves. But I mean, I know that's something that I often think about of um, how do I kind of pick and choose, like which battles do I really want to fight, Um, so I don't know. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if that ever really fully goes away because all of this stuff just takes practice. But um, I think it does get easier. The stuff, because at least for me, like when I assert myself now, it's um, when I am assertive, I would say the vast majority of the time, I don't even think about it. It's just become kind of second nature. Don't get me wrong, there's still definitely circumstances and situations that are really uncomfortable and that will just suck the energy from me and stresses me out to no end. And I really have to think of a whole planned response and um, it's a whole thing for me. But on the more mild end with asserting myself with people, it's second nature. So maybe that's just how it goes. Like the more we do it, the more second nature it becomes until, yeah, I guess that is kind of what it is, you know, um, kind of thinking about how much peace you have in your life. Because really the amount of peace we have it tends to be correlated with the boundaries that we have. So, um, yeah. And sometimes too, even with asserting myself, there's certain things that I do just let slide and there's certain thing or I might let slide at the time and then I might have that conversation later on with a person. It just kind of depends on the situation. But at least I think the takeaway in all of that is to at least start, to start being assertive in ways that you are comfortable and realize that in time that you will pick up steam with that. Just Me says, I am 14. Oh, I'm 14 months, no contact. And I'm starting to do more social things, but I find myself leery and judgmental of people that come across as bossy. I've stepped away from half the people I've met. Yeah, well, I guess I don't see anything wrong with that. I think, not everybody's meant to be in your inner circle, and it's okay also to have multiple circles. So this goes back to a big part in setting boundaries that I think so many of us have struggled with because for a lot of us we haven't had multiple circles. We've either had you're in my inner circle or you're not in my life. Like there's not a lot of in between. So realizing, okay, if there's people out there that we don't really click, or there's some certain things about them that I really find kind of off-putting or what have you, but they're I enjoy hanging out with him every now and again, realizing, okay, this is not the kind of person that I want in my inner circle, but this is more of like an acquaintance level person. We can go out and play trivia or, whatever, once a month or a few times a month, and that's okay. But I kind of need to keep them at arm's length because of X, Y, and Z about them is just really draining. Like, that's okay. And realizing too that boundaries is going to protect you a lot from people. So I think one of the first, when we first start learning about boundaries, when we first start setting them, it's very common for people to go from one extreme to the other. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't even know if there's a way that we could avoid that. I think it's just part of the learning process, where we go from having no boundaries and being overly trusting with people and oversharing and all of that. We swing to the opposite side where we start fortressing, and we're very quick to cut people out of our lives. And then in time, we get better at finding more of that middle ground there between, okay, is this the kind of person that I want? And, what type of circle is this person in? Are they in my inner circle? Are they in more of an outer circle? Or, and it's also okay to, for half the people you meet to just be like, yeah, I really don't want to associate with them. That's totally fine too. I think you'll find your balance in time as you just keep moving forward. However, I do want to add that a lot of survivors on the other side of this, they tend to look for kind of like these perfect people out there and oftentimes it's not so much that there are these perfectly healthy, well-balanced people out there. They might, everybody's on their own journey, right? But if they have kind of the fundamentals in place. They know basically treating other people with dignity and respect. Like, that piece has to be there. That's not something that we can teach or should try to teach or any of that. It just doesn't work. Like, that's just going to annoy them and it's going to frustrate you. So if they have that piece in place and they have that ability to have just sincere communication, then realizing a lot of that, building that healthy relationship is going to come from both people in that relationship as that relationship progresses. Because once they start realizing, oh, okay, this person actually listens to me when I speak, they take my concerns seriously, I can share things about myself, they're not going to tease me or use it against me or invalidate me, that they're an empowering, supportive person to be around. Like, once that level of safety is established, then that's when that relationship really starts to grow. And when conflicts do arise, because they will arise if both people are being their authentic self, then they're handled in a way that's appropriate, and that can further reinstill that level of trust between two people of, oh, okay, you know what? We had a disagreement and we were able to resolve this, and we were still able to treat each other respectfully, even though we were upset and angry and frustrated. That goes a long way in building a healthy relationship. So let's see here. Oh, good. Phoenix Rescue says, yeah, staying on my boundaries protected me tonight. Good job. Yay, you. And Just Me says, I am having trouble seeing people like normal now, though. Totally normal. That is, yes, that level of, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I must be losing my mind. Or is everybody a narcissist, or um, seeing problematic behavior everywhere? That kind of stuff, when your eyes first start opening to this, is very, very normal, because you're seeing behavior clearly for the first time ever. You know, the old us tended to gloss over a lot of stuff. We give people the benefit of the doubt. We just didn't believe them. Uh, there was a part, yeah, I think it was in the book, in the book club book that we're going to be discussing tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where he talked about it, and he's like, you know, people could even tell. He's like, people would even tell him, I'm I'm a bad person. I'm a dangerous person. And he would say, "Oh, no, you're not," and would gloss over it, and then would try to build them up and make them feel better about themselves. And he's like, you know, and then he was saying, he's like, he'd get shocked when they would do something really bad or hurtful or dangerous. And then he would feel angry, like, I can't believe you treated me like this. Um, you know, look at how much I've done for you. And he was saying how, you know, he had to break himself of that habit and realize, like, when they flat out tell you that they're you know, damaged, like, don't mess with them because they don't attach, or they don't love, or they are abusive, or what have you, then that's um you know, we need to distance ourselves. That, like, that's the work of a therapist. That's not something that we can do within a relationship. Like, they need help that's far beyond what we can do. So um but yeah, seeing behavior, that kind of stuff, when we start seeing problematic behavior for what it is, it can be very overwhelming and terrifying and crazy making and paranoia inducing, especially if nobody else is really seeing it. And then over time, we start to kind of realize, oh, okay, the world isn't divided up into just narcissists and, like, quote unquote normal people. That there's kind of different, that there's really three categories of people. There's normal, toxic, and then healthy. But even within those three categories, you know, there's no, you know, there's some overlap between, you know, toxic and normal, and then between normal and healthy. So it's seeing that there's just kind of this full range of um, behaviors in people. But if you have your boundaries in place, and if you are able to be assertive and hold that line, it I think it reduces a lot of the fear, because you set the pace and you control who is coming into your life and how long they're staying. And you get to the place too. I think a lot of people at first, they're really afraid to be assertive or to set boundaries, because they're afraid of, like, quote unquote missing out on a great person. And then over time, when you start really getting in tune with yourself and realizing, when you start really realizing what nourishes you and what drains you, and your list of non-negotiables gets to, like, a healthy place, and you just really realize, like, if these things aren't there, then no real relationship with depth is present with this person. So I'm not losing out on anything, because I need these certain things to be there. And it's when you realize that, then it doesn't feel like, oh, but what if I'm missing out on this amazing person who has just a bunch of really problematic behavior and violates my boundaries right and left? Like, that doesn't even cross your mind. It's a lot easier to be like, oh, wow, that's kind of a bummer. That person had some cool things about him, but the major stuff was way too major and just not workable. Let's see. Let me scroll up here. Hold on, I gotta get more comfortable on this couch. I'm like hunched forward. Not gonna be able to stand up when I'm done with the live stream here. Let's see. Yeah. Jennifer says, whenever I've started a friendship with females in my life, they always turned out to be narcissistic. Back when I was a kid, I didn't know how to stand up for myself and I just went along with what they wanted. But nowadays, I see these types of females for who they are and I stay away. The downside is I don't have any female friends because I only attract those types in my life. Well, it can help to kind of figure out what about them attracted you as a friendship. Because, I'm a big fan of we all attract a wide variety of people for a wide variety of reasons. And it's not so much about who we attract, it's more about who we're attracted to and how long, if we let that person into our life and to what degree and for how long. So I had a very similar pattern. It wasn't only like it wasn't every single female in my life but there were a few. There was one major one who was incredibly destructive. But again, hindsight being what it is, I didn't know how to set boundaries. Although I thought I did. I didn't know how to really be assertive, even though I thought I did. There were so many lessons learned in that. I got caught up in I ended up making her a really big part of my life. And so that was the reason it was difficult for me to walk away because I just spent all of my time with her. And so, and the beliefs I had about friendship, I really just believed friends were forever and that you should always work through something. And it just was not in my comprehension, I guess, to the thought of ending. I felt like I would be abandoning somebody if I kind of broke up the friendship. Like something like they really had to do me wrong in order for me to walk away, which of course that was a problem. So once I corrected a lot of those imbalances with my thinking and my behavior and set the pace and was like, okay, well, you know what, this person can come into my life. I'm not going to make them my whole life. I'm going to keep my other friendships. I'm going to keep my other hobbies. And I know what it feels like now to be more grounded in myself. So if somebody starts pushing for more than what I'm comfortable with, if they want time that I just don't have, or they have expectations that are unreasonable, I am in tune with that now. Whereas back then I wasn't. Back then I took everybody else set the pace. And if they had I always assumed that whatever issue they had was my fault and that I needed to be the one to fix it. So if I couldn't see them, I don't know, that day or call them that day, and they were hurt by that or they had a problem with that, then I felt like it was my responsibility to make that right. And of course, when you get around somebody who is kind of a bottomless pit of needs and wants and all of that, it's never enough. And so I was wearing myself out trying to make this other person okay with you know um with things, and that ended up just it just slowly starts kind of just choking the life out of you because you just give and give and give and it's just never enough. So let's see. Yeah, Jennifer says, I guess the only female friends that seemed healthy fell away because they thought I was weird. One was when I was a kid, and one was when I was a teenager. All of the other female friends came on way too overly friendly, and in the long run, way too headstrong. They won't take no for an answer. They only want to do what they want to do, wanting me to take care of random stuff like their kids and chores, etc. Yep, that was my exact pattern as well. And for me, one of the real, and I think this goes for a lot of people, but it was the realization of, okay, so then why was I attracted to that? Like, what signs was I missing or misreading? And for me, it was the, I had talked about this before. I grew up feeling very kind of unloved and just kind of lonely or ignored. And so um, when so I think I was really starved out in that area for a long time. And so then when I found either dating wise, like men or mainly female friends that were very quick to want to make me their whole world and just shower me with attention, I just ate it up, and I didn't see that as a problem. I didn't see it as a problem until 5, 6, 7 years ago, but uh, I didn't realize that that's how these whirlwinds were starting. And that was the appeal to me. That's why I was attracted to them, is because they were either knowingly or unknowingly, probably more so unknowingly, feeding into a lot of my vulnerabilities and kind of giving me everything that I needed. And that just hooked me like crazy. And so because I was so starved out, I was very quick to jump into that whirlwind and be like, oh yes, I want to spend as much time with you as I possibly can, and I'll just clear my schedule, and I'll just make you the center of my world. And that was not that was not healthy. And of course that was a one-way street. Well, sometimes I guess they would do the same, where we would make each other our whole worlds, but I mean regardless, it was toxic. But then yeah, very quickly then it was the demands, the inappropriate requests, because that kind of those kinds of people don't have boundaries. Like, there's no respect for boundaries. There's no comprehension of what boundaries are because of their sense of entitlement. And so, yes, and what you were saying, like, healthy people then start kind of distancing themselves, because for people, especially ones that are really in tune with their boundaries and knowing that they value themselves, they value peace in their life, all of that kind of stuff, when there is drama and chaos and that imbalance present, they sense that stuff immediately and they're like, yikes, I got to start getting some distance. I just don't want to even open the door to this. So, and you might have noticed now too in your own life, as you're moving forward in your healing, that you're finding the same thing. That people that you might have been, maybe even that you really spent a lot of time with, are now that you're like, boy, you know what? Actually, this dynamic is really one-sided, or it's really draining for me, and I need to um, kind of distance myself and find some different people that are, you know, um, just got different things going on. Yeah, Grace says, I definitely changed all my plans and made myself constantly available to him. Most of the time, he made me wait and convinced me that it was the right thing to do. I don't fall for that anymore. Yeah, good for you. And Jennifer says, yeah, right. I think it was just wanting to not feel like an outsider. And my male friends were and are great people, but I don't know how normal that is to just have male friends. Um, Here's the thing, I hate using normal as a standard for anything, because normal tends to be almost synonymous with problematic. I think the biggest thing to be concerned about with platonic friends is whether or not it's really platonic, because more often than not, one person has feelings, and that can be a problem. So that can be a problem in your relationship. That can be a problem with just somebody developing, just kind of hurt feelings over time, or kind of inappropriate feelings, or what have you. But yeah, I have. I guess I have a few. I would say they're more like male acquaintances, but um, yeah, I've always kind of not kind of. I've always made sure that that line was there. Sorry, dog hair is floating around this house. I guess for your situation, the concern would be if there's still kind of that imbalance present. If it's still kind of present, then it's still kind of present. And how much is it? Is it really not there with the guy friends? You know? Yeah. Jennifer was saying, yeah, one of my best friends is a guy and he has a live-in girlfriend. They're like an hour away in Utica, but they're both really great people and it's totally platonic. Yeah, I agree. I mean, my friend's house that I'm at right now, both of them, I met them through a meetup group years ago when they were both single. And they both ended up I would say two of my best friends, and they're dating. And now they live together, and they've been dating for 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer, 4 or 5 years now. So, and it's totally platonic. So uh yeah, yeah, I mean, it can be there. I just something to kind of keep in mind. So let's see, let me scroll here. Rob says measuring and calculating your inner circle is really, really important. It's helping me tremendously. Yes, I agree. That was a big game changer for me as well. And realizing what you share with people in each circle is going to be different as a result. I think there's so many things that um, we kind of like imbalances that we might not even be aware of. And I think oversharing is one of them. And not realizing that we're even oversharing. I think a lot of us kind of tend to feel like, oh, I'm just an open book. So it's, ask me anything. It's totally fine. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. I have nothing to hide. Not realizing that is inappropriate. And, to set the pace and to kind of, share different information with different people based on the level of trust that's been established with them, instead of just being completely open. And then realizing that we're continually adjusting. So if you share something with them based on how they handle that, if they're teasing you about it, if they're using it against you, what have you, then you kind of, then something then needs to happen. Some sort of adjustment needs to be made. So at a minimum, you're going to pull back and not further open yourself up. So that's important, because a lot of times if we're operating from that mindset of, oh, I'm just an open book and I'll just tell you anything you want to know, and you're setting the pace, then, we're setting ourselves up to fail if we're continually glossing over their problematic behavior, thinking that they have good intentions when they don't. Yeah, that kind of stuff can really knock you off balance. Bonnie was saying her narcissist mom would ask her really inappropriate questions and insist that you answer her. She would demand it. Yeah, that is so difficult when there's a person who's that difficult and demanding. I've come across, I had two friends when I was in my 20s whose moms were both like that. And just like outrageous, outrageous behavior, completely inappropriate, wild expectations of other people. And yeah, just not okay. Not okay. And that kind of stuff would always knock me off balance too. That was the thing. You just can't like prepare yourself enough sometimes to handle things like that. And that's a good point too. Joanna was saying, I always question whether or not I'm being overly cautious and unreasonable when I see a behavior that rattles me. I always think, well, am I overreacting to this? I think a lot of people struggle with that. Here's kind of my take on this now is I'm a big fan of just erring on the side of caution, but also erring on the side of what gives you peace in your life. Because one of the things that really gets so many of us in trouble is we are afraid of overreacting. This is why people don't take action. This is why people don't call 911 and don't um you know like they don't take action when they need to, because when they see a warning sign, I guess we don't realize a warning sign is just a warning. It's not the concrete proof that there's a problem, right? So getting in tune with when something's off it's such a game changer. Such a game changer. So for example, um, when I was a nurse, right? So I was in nursing school. I remember just being absolutely fascinated by that because this stuff's not taught. And so, like learning all of the signs, like the early warning signs of different illnesses, because all of this stuff is so easy to gloss over. So like, for example, with a heart attack, it's really common. Person with a heart attack, they start sweating profusely. They may or may not have arm pain. Women tend to have back pain instead of arm pain. It feels like they have indigestion, um, kind of tightness in their chest. It's very common for them to start becoming self-conscious that something's not right, and they get up and they go to the bathroom. And that's when a lot of people tend to die in the bathroom of a heart attack. So realizing, okay, a heart attack doesn't look like a heart attack. It's very rare that a person just clutches their chest and then falls to the ground. There's all of these early warning signs that more often than not tend to be there. It's whether or not we're seeing these warning signs as warning signs. And it's across the board for any major anything. So, but the challenge with that is because we don't know. And so we can feel like we're overreacting. I still have friends where if they start telling me different things like, oh, boy, I can really feel my heart beating in my chest, or uh, I feel hot all the time, or, oh, I'm starting to feel kind of anxious, or this, that, or the other. And if I say something to them, like, have you checked your blood pressure lately? Or has this gone on? And some of them, are open to that. Some of them just are like, oh, no, I'm fine, whatever. And they just blow it off. So it's common, I think, for people to kind of brush stuff like that off. But and for us, and that's the thing, because you don't know, like, right, if you don't know if, okay, is this person actually having a heart attack or is it truly indigestion? But waiting until they're on the floor isn't the time, then we've waited too long. So this is why it's so important to just take these kind of early warning signs seriously and realize, okay, we don't need to fly into a panic, but we can err on the side of caution and be responsive to that and go from there. So I mean, this is, I think, I wish this was a skill that was more taught, because it really needs to be. You know, this is what police, border patrol, um, first responders, EMTs, firefighters, doctors, nurses, people that are first responders are screening for. It's like, what is out of the ordinary here? And if it's something out of the ordinary, kind of starting to, and we're taught, I mean, I guess I'm kind of going off topic here, but like, you know, you start ruling stuff out and you kind of go from like the most possibly major thing down. But in terms of like other people's behavior, it's whether or not it's, where is the impact on the peace in your life? So like, for example, you know, if you're walking down the street and somebody starts, I had this the other day. Where was I? I was walking in to like the grocery store maybe, or some sort of building, and this woman, I was walking in the parking lot and she starts walking really fast behind me. And it was just really unnerving and off-putting. And so I finally just stepped out of her way to be like, you just go ahead. I don't like anybody walking that close behind me. Did she have bad intentions? Was she trying to, you know what I mean? Like, who knows? And frankly, who cares? All I know is that it didn't make me comfortable. So I just took some corrective action. And when you just realize, like, you don't need to know the intentions of the other person, you just need to do what works for you, then it's just an absolute game changer. So like, it doesn't matter if somebody meant to be creepy, meant to be inappropriate, meant to be rude, meant to be whatever. If it's making you uncomfortable, it's okay to take some sort of corrective action. You know, but it takes a little while getting like your sea legs with that, because especially, unfortunately, because this stuff's not taught, our eyes aren't open to this, and generally until we've experienced egregious boundary violations, such as with abuse. So our eyes are open to it, but the downside is then we're also struggling with PTSD or feelings of hypervigilance. We're struggling with trusting our perceptions of reality and our judgment. And so it's a lot of these new skills that we have to learn kind of all at once. And that can be very overwhelming. And it's very normal for people to second guess themselves and to wonder, is it me? Is it them? Is this weird? Is it not? Am I making a big deal out of things? Am I not? All of that. Jennifer says, my therapist told me that I need to get out of my head and be more present. But how does one even do this? I think I've lived in my head, as she put it, like my whole life, so I don't know. Well, I guess it depends on what you're talking about as far as like living in your head. Are we talking like daydreaming, fantasizing, thinking about worst case scenario, thinking about the future, thinking about other things to do, or, you know, I guess, yeah, what does that mean? Kind of living in your head. It's common for people for that to be a defense mechanism, to get lost in busyness, and that, you know, having a lot of ideas, daydreaming, writing out to-do lists, kind of that inability to sit still, those kinds of things tend to be more of that flight mechanism when that kicks in. And I think some of the ways that we can kind of counteract that is when we're aware of what's going on. If for, you know, if you're finding yourself, I don't know, you're at work and you're getting lost and you're starting a bunch of different projects, you're writing to-do lists, you're you know, I don't know, you're in a meeting and you're just doodling, you're doing other things, kind of noticing when you're not being present and then getting curious about it. So you're not coming from a place of judgment, you're just getting curious. okay, what am I trying to avoid in this moment? Is it boredom? Is it stress? Is this meeting stressing me out? Is it because I've got, this coworker, um, like what's really going on here? What am I trying to run from? And and that it takes practice, I think, too, being honest with yourself about those answers. Because when we've numbed out a lot, like physically and emotionally, and even really telling ourselves the truth because it's just not comfortable. So some of the ways that you can become more present is, well, you can do different grounding exercises. So you can, let's say, for example, um, get up and go to the bathroom and wash your hands with cold water and feeling the water on your skin, feeling the temperature, feeling the suds of the soap on your hands. Um, if let's say you're in a meeting and you're sitting, putting your feet on the ground, and you can kind of push your feet up and down like you're pedaling, and just paying attention to the sensations in your feet. Or you could make it a point to really focus on the person who's talking, or excuse me, to focus on different things in the room, like the color of the carpet, the color of the paint, the temperature in the room, what the person across from you was wearing, like these kinds of things, to just really become fully present in that moment. You can do little walking meditations where, if let's say you're going to work, or you're leaving and you're walking out to your car, or what have you, you're paying attention to every single sensation as your foot touches the ground. So as each foot touches the ground, how does that feel within your body? Where are you noticing, how does that the stride feel? So when you put the pressure, let's say, on your left foot, where are you feeling this when that foot touches the ground? Is it your heel first, or is it the ball of your foot first? And is there a sensation in your knee or in your hip? And kind of what muscles are you using? And how does that impact like your hips and your back and your shoulders? And fully being present with every single step. And you only need to do that for a few steps to really just like bring yourself into your body and into that moment. It's powerful, and it's an ongoing process, and it's something that you can do. I would encourage really everybody, myself included, to do on as often as you can throughout the day, even if it's just for 20 seconds. Noticing the leaves on the tree, or the temperature outside, or just the fabric of the clothes on your skin, is being fully present. Rob says, maybe I'm imagining this, but my gut says do something. Well, oh, maybe I'm imagining this, but when my gut says do something, do we act or not? If caution says go for it, act, that's one thing. Sometimes it's an alarm, but no one is stealing things. I think that goes back to erring on the side of caution. So the only gut, when we have what we call these gut instincts, that tends to be more of the caution response. So I'm a big fan of, if we have that caution response of, ooh, that's strange. That's how that initially registers. That's strange. Something's off. Then just erring on the side of caution. Just like that lady walking behind me the other day. That's strange. That makes me uncomfortable. I'm just going to move out of the way. Don't care. Don't need to know what her intentions are or whatever. It makes me uncomfortable. I'm going to take action. Uncle Fred says he's not feeling well, and it just seems off, right? Something seems off, and he gets up and excuses himself. Doesn't hurt to go just check on them and say, hey, are you doing okay? And, you know, these kinds of things. If I'm not a fan of listening to gut instincts that say, oh, absolutely, hell yes. More often than not, I have found that that tends to be more of our vulnerabilities speaking than the truth. So I just think it's a good idea to proceed with caution, just across the board. There was a saying, one of the things, had many aha moments over the years, one of which really tripped me up was the saying by Joseph Campbell, who had said, follow your bliss. And I remember I was so stuck on that for the longest time because I thought, well, I did do that. And look where I ended up almost getting killed by this sociopathic person. So how do I do that? How do I follow my bliss and stay safe? And then I realized the part of that I was missing was follow your bliss, but never at the expense of following your peace. Like there needs to be peace there. If you're having these feelings of caution, kind of this unhinged, oh, I don't know about that, then it's just a sign to slow down. If something's real, if that whatever's bringing you bliss is real, it'll still be there, even if you slow down. So let's see here. Jennifer was saying, I never told my coworker that it was a boundary violation because I didn't have the courage to, because I thought I was being too sensitive about it in a way, thought it was too much of an ego thing. Like, who am I to care about this? Like I was vain to care. I guess here's how I view these kinds of things is there's no such thing as a small deal. Like if it's an issue for you, then it's an issue. So here's an example, okay? I had a miscarriage years ago, 6+ years ago, and I had thought I'd made peace with all of that. And I began working at this agency, and I swear to God, everybody there became pregnant. Like it was just the weird, seriously, like every few months, somebody was pregnant. And that had been the first time I had really worked with, in that kind of an agency where there were that many pregnant people, and that it was such a close knit group of people that we would all have lunches together and baby showers, and people would hang out together outside of work and all of this. Well, when people began having the first baby shower I went to the store and I bought some baby stuff, and I about had a nervous breakdown. And I thought, I'm being too sensitive. What's wrong with me? I'm making a big deal out of nothing. I just need to get over it. Wrapped the gift, went to the baby shower at work, and stayed for about 10 minutes. And then I had to leave, and I just went to my office and I cried. And I felt like a monster because of that. Like, I'm being too sensitive. I'm making it about me. Why can't I just make it about her? What kind of person can't even be happy for their friend? What's wrong with me? I was so hard on myself about that. And I was so embarrassed by my behavior that I couldn't be present with her and share in her special moment. And it took me quite a while. So anyways, my boss, who was the therapist, ended up coming to check on me. And I just like lost it. I'm just sobbing in my office. I was so embarrassed. And she's like, you know what? It's totally understandable. It's okay. You don't need to come to these things, and I'm just apologetic, and oh my gosh, and blah blah. And anyways, I did a lot of soul searching about that, and I realized, you know what, this is not okay. I can't go to these. It's just too much of a trigger for me. And it doesn't make me a bad person. It just means that I've got some unresolved pain to work through. And if I'm feeling like I can get them, I don't know, like a Target gift card and a card, then that's okay. But I need to know my limits with things. So while that situation might, to other people, right, I felt embarrassed and ashamed by my behavior. Somebody else might have thought, oh my gosh, this is no big deal. This happened years ago. Dana, just kind of, you should be over it by now. It was still a big deal for me. And that's all that matters. And so I need to adjust accordingly. So whatever your situation is, if you're like, boy, you know what, this, like I was saying before, like with the joke, if somebody tells you a joke that you don't find funny, maybe it's not even so much of a deal breaker as like a racist joke or a sexist joke. Maybe it's just, I don't know, kind of lewd, right? Something that maybe everybody else finds funny, but you don't. If you don't find it funny, then that's all that you need to know. That's okay. Totally okay to not find certain things funny. Totally okay. Let's say you are working in an office and I've had this, I don't know, I've had this happen before where we had a bunch of coworkers who all spoke a certain language, but they also spoke English, but they would often speak the language with each other. But for those of us that were around, it made us feel like an outsider. Like, well, what are they saying about us, or what are they hiding from us? And then finally, just saying, having to say to them, I really like you guys, and it hurts my feelings when you guys don't speak English when I'm around. It's like you don't want to include me in the conversation, or that you don't want me to know what you're saying. And they stopped. So they started speaking English more. If I got up and left the room, or if other coworkers got up and left the room, they would go back to their native language, and that was understandable. And they had the option. They didn't have to start speaking English for me, but they didn't know that that was a boundary, or that was hurtful, I should say. That was kind of hurt. That made me uncomfortable, So nobody else knows where our boundaries are. Yeah, Jennifer says, there have been a few minor things this coworker has stepped over my boundaries with, even at our wedding. But like, they're so minor, I feel like I can't speak up. But I can see from here the pattern that I've had with women in the past boiling up. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's great that you can see the pattern boiling up. I think that's a big step in the right direction. So, yeah. But it's just picking and choosing your battles with people. But I guess I just wanted to kind of just reinforce that if it's uncomfortable for you, then it's valid. It doesn't matter if other people disagree with that or not. Like, if it's uncomfortable, and and just because it's uncomfortable for you, the other person might not change. Like, let's use that office scenario. Everybody else that's the office culture. They're telling all kinds of lewd jokes and racist, sexist jokes, stuff that you don't find funny. And you assert yourself and you say, hey, you know what, guys, like, I really don't want to hear those kinds of jokes. Can you please just not tell them when I'm in the room, or just don't tell them to me? And they don't stop, right? They just keep on. They have the right to do that, but then the ball is back in your court of, okay, I've made this boundary clear. They don't care. So now what am I going to do? So I either, then something else has to change. I need to see if I can move my office, or I can talk to my boss, or I can talk to HR, or I can possibly put in headphones, or I need to do something to bring peace back into my life. But this kind of stuff, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Let's see here. Let me scroll up here. Yeah, just me mentioned, you mentioned jumping from one thing to another a lot. I have so many things to do. It seems I have so many things to do. I'm not sure what that word means. IY seems like you do that constantly. Things eventually get finished. Yeah. The busyness, depending on how, it's so interesting when we can really kind of examine, how do we handle stress? That just opens and holds another door of things to explore. It's just absolutely fascinating. Pete Walker, I think, really just summed it up so well in his book, the CPT, or Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. And he was talking about, we have the fight defense, the flight defense, the freeze, and then he calls it the fawn. I like to call it the friend, because I just think it's easier to understand that way. But the kind of ingratiating, people-pleasing behavior. So we either go into fight mode when we encounter stress, we become defensive, we become aggressive, hostile, attacking, these kinds of things. Fight, flight, oftentimes busyness or avoidance of some kind. Freeze, we numb out, we try to get away. We do this by watching a lot of, binge watching, Netflix, sleeping, potentially eating, drugs, spending money, shopping, sex, these kinds of, it's excessive amounts of any of these things. And then the freeze, like I was, or the fawn friend, the ingratiating, people pleasing, trying to keep our environment predictable and everybody in it calm and happy so that we can be okay. And it's interesting. So when you kind of identify, like, oh my gosh, yeah, I think this is what's going on, then we can start digging a little bit deeper and, okay, well, what is stressing me out right now? What am I, kind of, why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? And just digging a few layers deeper, it's really interesting. Dale asks, hey Dana, is there a prevalence of narcissistic abuse survivors having or had nervous breakdowns? My guess is that there's quite a lot of them. I don't know if there's really been any kind of definitive research done, but you know, my guess would be that it's really high because this stuff, again, this stuff's not taught. So when a person's going through it, they oftentimes, and they're being told that it's all them, right? This is not a big deal. You're making a big deal out of nothing. You're drama. You're manipulative. You're the problem. And if you just acted different, I wouldn't mistreat you, right? Like that's the message that a lot of people get in childhood when they have a dysfunctional family. And that's the message they get in adulthood when they're in a dysfunctional relationship. And so if that person is taking all of that for face value and they're internalizing that, then my goodness, right? Of course, they're going to be walking around just this anxious, unhinged mess of, oh my gosh, what's so wrong with me? I need to change these parts of me. And of course, that you can't ever change enough to please a critical, controlling person like that. It's never enough because it's never about you or me or any their target, right? It's about them. So it just grinds the person on the receiving end of that down, and it's exhausting. And when we constantly feel like we're not good enough, and then plus if there's all of that push pull of, I love you, I hate you, I abuse you, and then I apologize. That's so anxiety inducing because there's never anything that's really constant in the environment. You never know where the relationship stands. And especially if they're sadistic and they like getting an explosive reaction out of you, they like making you cry, they like inflicting pain to see you suffer, to get a reaction because deep down it makes them feel important. That kind of stuff is the stuff that drives people to suicide or to a nervous breakdown. And then, then the survivor, I don't know, then that never goes well because a lot of people don't identify what's going on. And so then the survivor's being misdiagnosed and then as a result mistreated. So yeah. Let's see here. Let me scroll down. Yeah, isn't that the truth? Joanna says, yes, they just break you down to nothing and then stomp on what's left of you and then call you weak. Yeah, that's really well said. And it's a lot of times for narcissists, especially, they have, it's such an unhealthy sense of self. It's such insecurity within them that they can't handle any signs of insecurity. So any signs of weakness in other people, whether that's hurt feelings, whether that's love, kind of opening yourself to them in any way, shape, or form, they're revolted by that. They don't know what to do with it because it makes them so uncomfortable because for them, it's not safe to attack for whatever reason. It's not safe to attach to another person. So, and that's the kind of the catch-22 that so many partners of narcissists find themselves in, because here we are thinking, oh, if I can just show them how much I love them and how much they can trust me and how much I care about them, then someday I can earn their good treatment. But the reality is the opposite happens. The more you're open with them, the more you try having good communication, the more you're caring and loving and attentive, the more that they'll lash out and the more they're going to resent you for that, because it requires vulnerability for a person to be open to that. And they can't have that because they're too insecure. So they seek to destroy that within relationships and within other people, because I think it just reminds them of their own insecurities. They see you crying, they can't handle it because they can't handle their own emotions. Let's see, Denise was saying that shelters won't take her because he hasn't hit her. I'm not sure where you are, but every domestic violence shelter has different criteria for um, the people that basically the women that they take in. Um, so if you're not getting anywhere with one shelter, you might want to call another one and see. Um, you can you might want to phrase things in a way of like, okay, this is really this person's had that you're fearful of this person, that there's been a lot of emotional and psychological abuse. You might want to talk about in terms of fearful, intimidation, um, like on that level, and see if you can get a little bit further. But yeah, I'm sorry that you're struggling to find a place. I know that's so frustrating with various shelters out there. Yeah, and Kamami, thank you for mentioning that too. That sometimes churches can help. They can help with shelter, and they can help with money for a train ticket or a bus ticket out of town. Um, Even calling a shelter and saying, if I don't meet your criteria, can you do you recommend any resources, or who could I get help through, or do you have any ideas for me? Yeah, Sable says, yeah, this stuff isn't taught in grade school, and it's bizarre. I still get the, well, why did you put up with them question from curious bystanders? Yeah, that question is so damaging. I cover that in my book, The Narcissist Playbook, about how there's this weird divide that goes on between, we all think that we would see a dangerous situation or a problematic situation for what it is, and we all think we would act like that, we would respond appropriately, and we're all wrong, like the vast majority of the time. Um, it's difficult to take corrective action if you're not aware of what the problem is. So, and plus so much of society, really grooms a person into thinking like, uh, commitment takes work, marriage is forever, it takes two to tango, kind of what's your part in it? Um, love conquers all of this. So there's all kinds of like dysfunctional messages that can steer a person into staying and thinking that, oh, this is just like a relationship issue. This can be solved with enough, love, understanding, patience, time, therapy, rehab, religion, you name it. And that's not the case when it comes to abuse. Okay, let me scroll up here. Okay, yeah, people are talking to Denise about her situation. She says, I just turned 60. Everybody's telling me to get a job. I haven't worked in 7 years. I'm lost and I just don't want to live anymore. So, okay, Denise. Well, I guess first and foremost, we're glad you're here. Okay. And this is something that we do. We do these live streams pretty much every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and they normally run for about 3 hours. So, we're here. Second, I would strongly encourage you, if you're here in the United States, there's if you're feeling kind of that desperate that you might be a danger to yourself, there's suicide hotlines out there. They're free and they can either text with you or it's just somebody to call. It can be great. I would just strongly, I know a lot of people can struggle with feeling like, well, I don't know, I don't want to be a bother, right? And they struggle with calling one of these lines or texting with them. They have volunteers. It's totally fine. I would just encourage you, don't wait until you're at a place of absolute desperation to reach out for help. If you're already at that place where you're thinking like, I just don't want to be here, now is the time to start getting some help. So I would encourage you to, at a minimum, to contact a hotline. You know what? I'm going to look up the number for you right now. Okay. It is here in the United States. It's 1-800-273-8255, and they are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there's some really fantastic people there. It's great if you're just looking for somebody to talk to and just needing to talk through some things. So let's see. And if you're really feeling like you're going to do something, then maybe 911 is the way to go too, to where you can see about getting some help immediately. People are talking about money and things that you can do. Here's something that I've been meaning to mention to you guys, which is just an idea for some people. But there is a website. Let me look it up to make sure I'm telling you the right name here. Okay, yeah. It's Cambly, CAMBLY.com. And I don't know if they offer other languages, but if you are a native English speaker, you can sign up to teach, to basically be a conversation partner for other people that are looking to practice their English. And I have a friend who does this. Actually, the friend whose house I'm at right now, she goes through Cambly, and so she teaches English as a second language online, but then she also does work as a conversation partner through Cambly. I don't remember how much they pay. I think it's around like $10 or so an hour, but it's great for people that if you're just, if you're sitting at home, if you have a decent internet connection, it's interesting. You get to talk to people from all over the world, and you set your own hours. You can take a week off, you can take a month off, you can come back on. You just show when you're available, when you're not available. It can just really be a great way to start putting some money aside and to just start connecting with other people. So that's kind of just something to think about if somebody's looking to make some extra money on the side. Oh, very cool. Yeah, Cynthia was saying, I was thinking of tutoring. I'm 62. I lost 17 years to the narcissist. This is a godsend. Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes. Omaluk says Cambly.com. Yes, Cambly.com. CAMBLY.com. Yeah, it's really entertaining. Whenever I'm over here and my friend is just she's a talker. It's the perfect job for her. So she I'll come over here, and she might be talking to somebody on Cambly, and I leave the room and I come back and she's talking to somebody else, and she's talking to one guy and who was an entrepreneur in the Middle East, and then there was a woman who was in Japan. I mean, it's just all kinds of people, all ages. It's interesting. Just to hear what's going on in different parts of the world and about their culture and their life. Yeah. Well, Denise, it might be worth checking out. Another thought too is the website meetup.com. They have a lot of either free or very low cost groups, um, pretty much all over the world. And you can join groups based on interest. It's not a dating site, it's just based on interest. They have crafting groups, they have, uh, gosh, you name it, you name it. And that can be a great way to just kind of get out there and meet some people. And I have found that most people in meetup groups tend to be in some sort of life transition. Or they either work a lot yeah, I guess generally in some sort of life transition. Uh, and yeah, I've met quite a few really great people through Meetup. It's, but it's open to the public. So, it's kind of hit or miss. Like there's also some strange people that are just not going to be, you know, your kind of people, and that's okay too. So, but it's just an idea. Oh, yeah, good. Omaluk says, I'm a retired ESL teacher and I'm going to check it out. I left the narcissist a year ago and I can barely survive on my pension. Yeah, awesome. Check it out. There's another website called VIP Kids, and it's teaching English to children in China. And that's the other site that my friend works through. And they are, I know that they really need teachers. I don't know what their minimum requirement is, but if you have, I mean, if you're a retired ESL, it would just be a slam dunk. The only downside is the time difference. So it generally tends to be pretty early in the morning that she teaches class. I want to say she starts at around, I think she starts around 4, but you can set hours. So you can decide, you know, what you want to do. But that's worth checking out too. Let's see here. Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you guys so much for reaching out to Denise and just offering words of support. It's I think so many of us have been there where we're just kind of entertaining the idea of suicide, and that's such a lonely, scary place to be. And I just, whoever else is listening to this that's struggling with this, I strongly encourage you to please seek help, and please realize that so many of your best days are still ahead of you, and that it's understandable that you would feel so, that's easy to get lost in the darkness from all of this. It really, really is. Um, but that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you can get through this. And it's like the saying goes, when you find yourself in hell, when you find yourself walking through hell, you just keep walking. this darkness doesn't last forever. And there is support out there. There are groups out there. We do this live stream every Wednesday. There's free support groups on the internet. I have a support group through Facebook. I actually have 2 support groups through Facebook. One is called Thrive After Abuse. So if you are interested in joining that, just make sure that you're joining the group and not the page, because the page is open where the group is private. And the other group on Facebook is called 365 I Thrive. And that group is for people that are kind of at a different, I guess, a little bit further along in their healing, that are more focused on kind of the reassembling part of their life, whereas the Thrive After Abuse group is more for people that are fresh out and still needing to get that clarity, that validation, that understanding, and they're still processing a lot of their pain. So, and Zachary, I don't know if you're still here or not, or kind of how everything ended in the chat, but I saw that you had joined the other day, and I should mention too, the 365 group, I think, would be right up your alley. So, oh, really? How funny. Omaluk says she even taught English in China for a year. That is so cool. Well, gosh, you would just be perfect. Yeah, if you're interested in working with VIP kids. There's another one that's also, oh gosh, what is it? I want to say it's something like ABC Kids or something, but that doesn't, it's ABC something. And it's teaching English as well. Yeah, and Joanna says, when you're going through these dark moments, it feels like you'll never get out, but you will. It just takes time. Yes, yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I just would strongly encourage you. One of the things that really helped me when I was going through this was to take the option of suicide off the table. Like, just take it off the table. It's not even a viable option. That helps a lot, especially if you do struggle with depression and you find when you're not able to when you're struggling to rein in your thinking and you're just all over the place, to just take certain things off the table of, okay, you know what? Not even going to go there, because this isn't the solution that I'm looking for. And so, okay, if this is not a solution, then what is? Like, what ways can I deal with this? Okay. And then you start your brain starts working in, I think, a healthier direction when you just take suicide off the table as an option. Yes. That's a really great point, Bonnie. She says, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and peace and happiness. Yes. Yes. That's something that I think a lot of people, when you're in that darkness, we struggle with feeling like, could this ever be could we ever find peace, or could we ever even be happy again? Are we just doomed to feeling profoundly broken and just kind of existing, just shuffling through the day and and not really living life because we've been so badly damaged? And that, I know, at least for me personally, that was such an absolute game changer when I began talking to people who were at so much further than I was at the time in my healing, that they were able to truly take what had happened to them and, with time, and use it towards their highest and greatest good, and that they were able to get to a place in their life where they were able to reflect back and be like, oh my gosh, so much. I was able to squeeze so many positive things out of this that my life is at such a radically better place because of this, because of the attitude that I cultivated after this, and that I was able to consciously rebuild my life. And I was able to consciously rebuild it into something that I loved. It's so powerful. And that's been my experience too. Like, but I had to realize that that was even a possibility. I did not realize that at the time. That was a shocker to me. So I think realizing that a good life after this is still absolutely possible. And I would even kind of make the argument to say that a truly good life is only possible after something like this. That might sound really wild, but it's true, because these boundary standards, deal breakers, all of this stuff is not taught. And most people, I think, go through life with um, profoundly unhappy and agitated and acting out of guilt and obligation and fear and doing, at different levels. But I think most people's lives aren't working for them because this stuff's not taught. And it often takes our whole life just being, this explosion that happens, implosion after abuse, for us to be forced to rebuild. But the beauty in that is that you get to consciously choose the pieces that you rebuild with. And then it's a game changer, and then you're able to fully restore peace in your life. So, oh, very cool. Maura says, hi, y'all. Super late here. Dana, I got your 3-year journal. Cool. I hope you're enjoying it. I'll be curious to see. I still need to find some more interactive way of kind of going through the questions in that. Yeah. Sable was saying, Dana, that's so true. Oh boy, she says we should bless our lucky stars for this experience as it truly rebuilds us. There's always that silver lining in any situation, but that we're the ones that do the hard work. Like, I don't want to give the pain, you know, any credit, but it's really cultivating that attitude of, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna take because life is not fair. These all kinds of horrible things happen to people all the time. I'm going to take whatever happens to me and I'm going to use it for my highest and greatest good. And in time, I'm going to try to use it for the highest and greatest good of others in some way, shape, or form. So maybe that means, so for me in my situation, that was another big aha moment. And I got that from my grandmother. She had been married. She's passed away, gosh, when I was, I think, around 20. So it's been about 20, it's hard to believe, 20 something years ago. She was married to a narcissist, my grandfather, who was a minister. And he was very charismatic. He was funny. He was handsome. Um, just, she was from a small town, just very naive, had, took him at face value, and he cheated on her nonstop. He just was a piece of work. And she was also a writer. And anyways, she was profoundly hurt by the experience. She just went through hell with all of it. Part of it was the time, the generational thing. She had filed for divorce, but he made her recant because it was embarrassing to him. It was all about him. My mom and her sister and my grandmother, they just were dirt poor. I mean, they were so poor that strangers would bring groceries and leave them on the doorstep because my grandfather was out spending money on other women and on himself, and just horribly selfish human being. I had no idea that she went through so much with him until my mom had told me a little bit here and there when I was a teenager. But I had no idea until after she died. And my grandmother was just an angel. She just was the sweetest, most compassionate, loving, kind person I have ever met. And she was such a sweet woman. And if you were to have met her, you would have never guessed that she had ever known pain in any way, shape, or form. And so when I realized, oh my gosh, this woman, not only has she known pain, she's been going through this for decades of just all of the hurt and just being so kind of just, backed into one bad situation after another because of the time. She was a woman, and back then, if you were a woman, you couldn't buy a car, you couldn't get credit, you couldn't buy a house unless you were married. It was very difficult. She'd been a stay-at-home mom for years. It just was one thing after another for her, and to get back on her feet. And so then when I was going through my situation and was healing from it, my mom gave me a book that my grandmother wrote that had never been published. And it was all about her marriage and her divorce. And realizing, oh my gosh, I can choose. I don't have to let this experience absolutely make me bitter and angry and a hardened person. If she can go through this, and if she can still be a kind, compassionate, loving person, then so can I. Because she went through it for decades, and the strength that it must have taken to not let that ruin her life and completely harden her is impressive, to say the least. And so that was something that really helped me to kind of change my attitude and realize that I could still be a kind and compassionate person and have boundaries. That didn't mean that I had to, allow hurtful people into my life. So I think sometimes just hearing that these things are possible, that a good life is possible, that you can make a lot of very empowering decisions about the kind of person that you want to be after abuse, and the kind of personality traits that you really want to enhance, and focus on what you don't want to be, and focus on what you do want to be, and do more of who you want to be in your life. So yeah. Maura says, wow, can you publish the book? I could. I would need to go through and probably update it a little bit, because it was written, I think, back in the 70s. So yeah, I should publish it for her. She had submitted, she had a publisher, and my mom had said that when she submitted that book to them, her book was called, the working title of it was called something like From Divorce, from like Despair to Delight. And it was just about her own journey through hell with all of this and coming out on the other side. Her publisher had sent her a letter saying that her book didn't meet criteria, that it was very dark and depressing, and that basically she needed a therapist. Which is, again, just even more heartbreaking, because she's still not alone in going through all that with an abusive person. Let's see. Let's get one more comment in here, and then we'll go into our meditation, and then we'll call it a night. And then I will see you guys tomorrow for book club. 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The book we're going to be discussing is called Whole Again by Jackson Mackenzie. So, and let me see if I can get the dog over here, since I promised you guys. I'll mute you. You want to say hi? You want to say hi to people? Come here. Oh, say hi. Oh, say hi. You want to say hi? Huh? No? Okay, we'll just turn the camera. There's Pico. You say hi. Yes. Oh yes, I know. You're such a cute dog. You're so cute. Yes, you are. Oh, yes, you are the sweetest dog ever. She is so cute. She is part pug and part, what are you? Part some wire hair terrier, I think. Yes, and 100% cute. 100% cute. Gosh. Yeah. Oh, Pico, everybody thinks you're so cute. They think you're so cute. Yes, you are. Grace says, yeah, she came for the meditation. Yeah. Yeah, she might have. She's seriously just the best dog ever. She really, really is. Yeah, and that's such a great point. Joanna was saying, uh, it's it's hard when you don't have the words to describe your experience. Yes, absolutely. I think that's been the challenge for so many of us is, you just don't know what happened. We don't know, we don't have the vocabulary for it. And so it's difficult to explain it to ourselves, let alone to other people, to get the help that we need. Sable asked, who would you pick to play her as a movie star? Are you talking about for my grandma? Betty White. Betty White. Without the sassy Betty White personality, just the cute Rose. My grandmother was kind of like Rose from the Golden Girls, just really naive and just really sweet. Anna says, this dog has permanent smiley teeth. Yes, she does. She has the funniest teeth. But they're beautiful. They're beautiful. But she has like 4 rows of teeth. I've never seen a dog that has teeth like that. Kind of funny. Huh? That's what happens when you get mixed breeds, huh, Pico? Yeah. Yeah. Sable says, oh my God, I was thinking that. That's so funny. Yeah, Betty White. That's hilarious. Jennifer says her boyfriend just started watching the Golden Girls on his own and he is obsessed. That's so cute. He says Rose is so misunderstood. That's funny. Joanna says there's a big buff dude at my gym who wears a Golden Girls t-shirt to work out. That's hilarious. Yeah, it's a great show. My new favorite show lately, that's my happy place, has been what is it? That British baking show. I seriously watched so many episodes yesterday of it. I love that. I love that show so much. It's just so wholesome and cute and uh, yeah, great. Okay. Oh, thanks, Damien. Says thank you, Dana, for being you. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so I guess let's go ahead and move into our meditation for the evening. So, if you have a moment, take some time and settle in, whether it's a chair or if you're laying down or wherever you might be, just taking some time to get comfortable and to just be present in this moment of reconnecting with yourself and just being present in the moment and allowing yourself a chance to relax. Let's take a series of, let's do 5 breaths in through your nose, then slowly out through your mouth. With each breath in, allowing it to travel deeper down into the bases of your lungs, allowing your chest to rise and fall easily and effortlessly, allowing your muscles to unwind and relax, realizing that in this moment you are safe and that there is so much that is good and right with you and with this moment. So let's just be fully present in this moment, paying attention to each breath. You inhale and exhale, feeling your body progressively getting more and more relaxed, releasing the tension, allowing your body to become heavy with each passing breath. Heavier and heavier. And turning your attention now to the temperature in the room, noticing if it's warm or if it's cool. How it feels for you. Noticing if there's any sounds around you, perhaps other people talking or cars going by. Noticing the sensation of each breath as you inhale and exhale. Noticing the feel of the fabric of your clothes or your sheets around you. How it feels against your skin. If it's soft or if it's scratchy. If it's fluffy, if it's warm, or if it's thin and breezy. And continuing to breathe. And taking the time to realize and to reconnect with so many things that are right about you, that are good and right about you, that you are dedicated to personal growth, that you're able to reach out to other people when you need support. That is an absolute strength that we definitely don't give enough credit to. That you're here supporting other people. Your ability to be resourceful, your strength, your absolute strength with how much you've gone through. You are a warrior. You've come this far. So many things that are good and right with you. So many strengths that you have that you can build upon. You are capable. You are competent. You are wise. You are strong. You are powerful. Powerful beyond what you even currently know. You are a creator. You have the ability to begin recreating your life at any time, step by step, brick by brick. You are worthy of being treated with dignity and respect simply because you are alive and you are here. Now let's visualize a waterfall off in the distance. Beautiful, serene waterfall, shimmering silver water, just lightly spraying and misting around. You can see rainbows forming on multiple sides of that waterfall. You can hear the water as it hits the rocks and splashes over. And you know that this waterfall is very special, that it's purifying. And as you continue to approach it, visualizing all of the hurt, pain, the stress that you're carrying as rocks in a backpack. Visualize the weight. Maybe it's 5 pounds. Maybe it's 50 pounds. Maybe it's 150 pounds. Realizing, you can take that backpack off and you can place it in a safe spot. And that it's okay to take it off from time to time and to allow yourself to relax, to smile, to enjoy the little things in life. And that at any given time, you can always go back to that backpack. You can unzip it and you can look in it. You can remove whatever rocks that you're ready to remove. You can pick it up and carry it some more. You are in charge. You set the pace. There is no right or wrong answer here. So let's just take a moment to visualize setting that backpack down, because we're going to go under that waterfall, knowing that that backpack is safe. And as you approach that waterfall, feeling that wonderful cooling mist just spraying all over your face and your skin, feels so refreshing, especially on a warm day like today. As you make your way under that waterfall, allowing that wonderful, restorative, purifying water just easily and effortlessly cascade over you, rinsing away any hurt, pain, and stress that you might still be residually holding on to. Allowing that restorative water with these wonderful healing properties to travel deep down into your skin, absorbing it down into the cellular level, visualizing every single cell in your body becoming large and bright with that same shimmery silver light, becoming repaired and nourished, maybe even visualizing little happy faces on every single cell as it becomes restored. Feeling the peace that comes with this. Noticing how much lighter you feel, how much more energy you suddenly have. Allowing yourself to take a moment and just smile, being fully present in this moment, and acknowledging that there truly is, there's so much that is good and right with you. And allowing that knowledge to just sink in. There is so much that is good and right with you. And at this point, you can choose which side of the waterfall you'd like to stay on. You can stay in this kind of little cave, hidey hole area that's a safe place. And perhaps there's other people back there that are laughing and splashing. Or perhaps it's just you and you're enjoying your quiet time. Whatever that place looks like, you can stay there or you can come back out. Maybe continue going for a walk. Maybe there's a meadow, beautiful blowing green grass, flowers, just a clear blue sky as far as your eye can see. But this is a safe place. And this is a place that you can come to anytime you would like to. All you have to do is just visualize and bring yourself here. So when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes and come on back. So thank you guys so much for being here. And just as a reminder, we have book club tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I hope you can make it. And with that said, everyone have an absolutely lovely rest of your evening and rest of your week. And I hope to see you soon. So lots of love to you guys. You are not alone. You are not crazy. And you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care and just lots of light and love to you. Okay. Good night.